Hello, everybody. We're live. I am here with Deva Prestons from the Netflix series Too Hot to Handle. Welcome, Deva.
Thank you for welcoming me on this Tantra connection. Let's get connected, huh?
And today we're going to speak about life force and how we sometimes unnecessarily suppress life force. But first, tell us a little bit about your background. I actually know you, I think, since 8 years ago. We met in Ängsbacka. So tell people a little bit about your background while I make sure that we're streaming in the groups.
Sure, sounds good. So, I came from Jamaica originally and grew up in the States, in Florida, Miami, and have been for the last 15 years being in front of groups, sharing about relationships, and got very fascinated about specifically sexuality in our relationships and how we work with sexual energy. Coming from Jamaica, we're very outgoing with our sexual energy. Not all Jamaicans, obviously, but there's definitely an energy of like really dancing big time with a lot of sexual energy, and I think being from that place, I felt like it was a lot of fun. And when I kind of shifted to other cultures and saw that that wasn't necessarily the case, that a lot of it is suppressed, it had me questioning, like, why would you suppress something so beautiful, you know? And
Right.
in what can we change that? And so I went on this journey going to like Anspecka Festival, for example, where I met you, and many other workshops and trainings with teachers that teach about sexuality, and saw, lo and behold, that I have a lot of suppression around sexuality. I thought that everything was great, being in Jamaica and then like getting just very rambunctious with my energy, but actually there was a lot of performance anxiety and some fears around how do I relate and to whom do I relate and am I too much or like and sometimes suppressing myself in fear of being rejected, and so
Mhm.
rejection and all of these various things that I think a lot of people experience, especially because, like I said, 15 years I've been talking and working with people on how they relate. Um, is usually, I would say, 99% of the time, it's usually an unnecessary suppression based on fears that they have in their mind, but that's not actually in reality.
Right.
And so, hoping that today I can share with you like uh, how I've worked with others in being able to help them break through beyond that and grow
Mhm.
as an alive, radiant human being with their life force energy.
Yeah, and in Tantra community, we have a lot of people that just are discovering Tantra and conscious sexuality. So I would almost want you to speak about life force. What is life force, so that we can understand what it is that we are tapping into, and maybe even what it is that we are suppressing.
Yes. And so the way that I feel it and describe it, I did years of Qigong and Tai Chi and, of course, the Tantra. And they talk about this energy that you feel. And yes, I'm feeling tingly sensations, for example, if I'm doing the Tai Chi and working with the energy. And I'm feeling as well maybe some internal sensations on the skin, on the surface of the skin, not just what I feel outside on the edges of my hands or my body, but on the surface. And then, of course, internally, there's sensations that I feel, but I never really related it to the orgasmic pleasure
Mhm.
until I started to explore all the nuances between subtle subtle body sensations and the actual orgasmic peak, the climax. Before it was kind of like I'm in the motion of things and I'm so focused on like how well can I, create this experience with my lover or with myself, like focused on getting to the peak that, it's almost like there's nothing happening and all of a sudden you feel something and then there's like a very short period of time of feeling a heightened sensation. And
Mhm.
so I had to slow that down dramatically to realize like, oh, actually this spectrum is something that we feel in our everyday breathing life, and we're connected to that spectrum. And orgasm is the peak, the kind of the pinnacle of, or when I say orgasm, I mean like the climax is like the pinnacle of the intensity of our resource that keeps us alive, that makes
So would you say that life force is sexual energy, but actually sexual energy is more than sexual energy? It's also something that we can use like for more than just sexual purposes. And if we slow it down, we can feel it more everywhere. Is that kind of a good way to think about it?
yeah, a little bit. The way I look at it is like this. Is a simple analogy, right? When we see a rainbow in the sky, what we're seeing is um, one source, which is the sun, being refracted in, because of the droplets that are in the sky, right? The mist that's in the sky, and creating several colors, right?
Mhm.
7 primary colors. But that is one source creating all of these beautiful colors. So you have to look at your sexual energy and your life force energy in the same way. We just categorize and say, oh, okay, now I'm feeling something that I refer to as sex because we usually only feel it when we're in a sexual engagement, either with
Mhm.
ourselves or with our lover. And so that's not true. That's like saying, oh, you know, you know, the lights is one thing, but when I look at the rainbow, I want to separate this rainbow and say, now this is this color, this is that color, which is okay, but it doesn't make it different from the original source.
Mhm.
You understand? It doesn't make it
Mhm.
different from the original source, which is light. And orgasmic pleasure is a feeling. And when I speak about feelings in general, I always include orgasm as one of the feelings in the rainbow or the spectrum of the ways that we can feel ourselves and our body. Think of when you're living and you're feeling yourself, whether it's through joy, through happiness, through bliss, through fear, through anger, through sadness, grief, any of these feelings, or orgasmic pleasure, any of these feelings come from the same source, is a part of our life force. And so if
Mhm.
we can embrace it in that way, then we have more access to the spectrum that we can share with ourselves and with our lovers.
Yeah, and I feel like you have taken on kind of a big task in a way because you are saying, let's not suppress this life force. But like we know, many people are not even really aware of the life force. It's kind of a two-step in one. First, it's becoming aware, and then it is to see, okay, how can we allow it? So can you maybe speak a bit more about that, about how do we allow it? And if we aren't really aware, how can we include it in our life and not only in the sexual act or not only in the orgasm, but like the prolonged lovemaking and the way of breathing life? Like how do you work with people in order to come into this and have it as like the same thing as taking a shower in the morning? You kind of come into your life force.
Yeah, so I'm going to give a kind of a stark uh, story to kind of really try to bring it home. Because yes, people suppress their life force all the time unnecessarily, and it has a lot to do with not good enough or too much or inappropriate ideas around what they think they should or shouldn't do based on certain circumstances in life. And so because of this mental ideas about life, they're suppressing such a huge spectrum of what's possible for them. And so there's a beautiful story of a woman, it's a true story, that was walking in the park, and a man grabbed her, pulled her into the bushes, and started to try to take off her clothes and try to rape her, right? Had a knife to her for her to be quiet and so forth. Now, most people feel like I need to fight, I need to run, right? And contract, right? Contract, be in this kind of place and be in the kind of paralyzation of fear. And usually this is the energy that we're putting out in tiny little increments every single day because we're trying to be appropriate with the way that we feel and the way that we share ourselves, right? But this is a huge situation, right? Whoa, there's somebody trying to rape me. She actually chose, rather than to suppress and contract her energy, to expand, soften, relax, and open herself to the man, touching and caressing his face, embracing him, seeing the vulnerability that he has in the situation, seeing that he's a human like anyone else, seeing that maybe he has a story that brought him to this situation that none of us really know, and to hold compassion for him. He actually softened, broke down crying, didn't rape her, and actually walked her home to be sure she was safe. So that for me was a really powerful example of what is possible when we choose, in of course a very conscious way, and in situations where we can really, navigate, and we know we can. She obviously thought she could navigate that very hard situation, to be expansive in the energy. And it's not about sex at all, right? She was choosing to expand her life force in the sense of love. Like I said, there's a spectrum of feelings, and she had a choice, and she made that choice to expand love. So think of life force as the whole spectrum.
Yeah, and speaking about rainbow, I feel like if we come back to the body, we could say it's the chakras. And that's what you were speaking about yesterday with Body Awakeners in your webinar there, that the heart is really the connector. And what I often say, the heart is the middle between, serving ourselves and our needs in the lower chakras and our pleasure, but also including the higher and the whole. And, what are we here? Like, how can we be light beams in the world? And I feel, maybe you could expand a bit on when people are in their life force, like what changes in their relationship, what changes in the world once we aren't suppressing. Like, what can we expect in ourselves, in our relationship, in the world, once we are fully in our energy?
I think what we can expect in our relationships in the world is that we start to get more clear about who and what we are attracting. Very clear, because we're no longer sending out signals that are causing the kind of confusion about what needs to come in. We start getting more and more clear about exactly what it is that we are choosing for our life and how we choose to show up for it. Secondly, we start to, and the reason for that also is because we're no longer afraid to feel and share things like our anger. And when people think anger, they think of like rage, like they're just going to go mad and crazy and project. When I get angry, I'm very careful to be sure that my anger is mine, that I don't need to project it on anyone, and that I can express this energy and then speak from that place after moving it and clearing it, the whole emotional release stuff that Laurie, for example, talks a lot about. After clearing it and moving it, I can express that anger and feel that fire inside and express from a place of love and making my choice for what I want in my life. And so we'll see more and more people actually just speaking absolute truth and being authentic human beings. Like, hey, this is what's true for me. This is what I am choosing, and not projecting or forcing that onto anyone else. So also, so our communication becomes very, very clear, and our attractor patterns become very, very clear. And this will make a dramatic difference when we allow our life force to actually flow through us, because that is a purification process. And when I got to that point where I actually allowed it so much that it blasted me open like a kundalini awakening, yeah, I almost had no choice but to be very authentic and very clear about what it is that I want to do with my life. It started making decisions for me rather than me trying to make my own decisions. And so it can get to that level,
Yeah. And that's kind of in the archetype world in psychology, we call it the king or the queen. It's like when you are making decisions from that knowing, and it's not actually a mind thing anymore. So, and you're kind of in your sovereignty, because there is no other thing. There's this choicelessness of it. So, and how can we, if we want to speak to more in the sexual and intimate realm, like when you aren't suppressing life force anymore, when you're not making love from your mind, for example, what opens up in intimacy when we can include all the colors of the rainbow?
You become a super human being. Yeah, it definitely changes the lovemaking and the intimacy as a whole, because especially when you give, not only that, if what it is that you want to receive, because a lot of people are just like trying to get what they want in terms of like what they're looking for. When you give, and I'm gonna say that specifically, when you give the other person the freedom to feel, when you give them the freedom to feel, meaning that they have the freedom to be angry, to be sad, to be fearful, to be loved, to be like overly loving, anything that you want, and you're just speaking from a place of truth. Like, I'm a full yes to this, and I'm a no thank you to that, without projecting anything. To say, no thank you to this, or yes, that feels great. Then there's ability to deepen where you can go in the relationship, where you can go in the intimacy. A lot of times people are just making love and having sex, or just doing, or being together, either out of obligation or out of thinking, oh, that's what the other person wants. Even giving them of themselves, like, oh, okay, here, use my body in this way because I feel like it'll please you. And so we're like in relationships being pleasers, when we can be like literally communicating so purely and so lovingly that we can open up to a place of like, how can we really harmonize with each other rather than pleasing each other? Oh, he likes this, she likes that, or they like this, they like that. You drop that and say, oh, okay, this is the boundaries, which is super important actually, to understand your boundaries. Here's the boundaries, and here's where things can soften, here's where things cannot, and then we can then rest into a place where we can go further and go deeper. So that's super important. It's what allowing specifically the feelings to be able to emote without projecting them. It's very clear, very to feel, but don't project your feelings. Oh, I feel this way because of you. And I'm going to use this as well. I feel pleasure because of you. Don't project. Your pleasure is your pleasure. Oh, I feel love, or I'm in love because of you. Don't project. Your love is your love. Or I feel angry because of you. Of course, we all say, oh, we don't want that, right? But a lot of people don't want your projective love either, because then they feel responsible if the thing shifts in the relationship. And so all of it needs to be owned and then expanded throughout the body, expanded throughout the experience. And that will be a transformation in your life force.
Yeah, so now you're actually going into some tools, because one thing was say, oh, you feel the life force and then it speaks through you and everything is done. But like now you're actually going into some specific tools of communication that are important. So this thing of like taking your responsibility, taking it back to you, like, are there any other things where we can kind of start if we, it's an energetic thing and it's also a communication thing, I guess. So can you give us some more things of how to start to incorporate this in our intimacy?
Yeah, for sure. Symbolic actions, which they call psychomagic, is really powerful. In the Too Hot to Handle series, well, in the episode I'm in episode 5, I have the men, because I'm working with the men in this particular series, go through a psychomagic process to help them recognize the power and the importance of being vulnerable and allowing themselves to feel, and then breaking past the things that they tell themselves, the story that they think, oh, this story is why I can't feel. 99% of the time, the story is an absolute lie, and we're living a lie. When we tell ourselves certain things, and then we kind of take that statement and then make it our life, it's a lie. You're living in the past. It's not what's true for you. We're all free to constantly change and to mutate into something deeper and richer. And so I kind of point that out, say, hey, that's a lie. Now, choose your yes. Choose what you want in your life, and use a psychomagic act. With them, we wrote all these things down, and then we tore it all up and burnt it in the fire. And, it's beautiful, transformative process. So find your way. You can also go to my site, Orgasmic Heart, and I have a full course called Heart Warrior Training. And it brings you through a process called a rites of passage to help you transform, to liberate yourself so you are free to feel, and that you can actually see this be integrated into your life.
And this is both women and men. I mean, now you're speaking more about about men maybe, but how are men and women different? And if you would give like, a couple of tools for men, a couple of tools for women, or do you feel like it doesn't matter? Or are we conditioned differently when it comes to suppressing our life force?
I would say the scenarios are different, but I would definitely say that we all share a very common factor, a common denominator, which is am I good enough? and or am I good enough? And shit, I'm excuse me, I'm not remembering the other three. I have it all written down when I speak about it with my group. It's on my But there's some very clear common denominators that everybody can relate to. I don't care if you're male, female, any gender, non-binary, anything. These things come up, and it's because we have this idea of us being separate, and then we're trying to find our way in this like world of separation. And so it's very common that these things come up, and then our emotional body is how we relate or respond to it. And so to be able to acknowledge that the emotional body is a powerful tool rather than a problem, then we can start really seeing that transformation occur. And it could be in the male or the female. Yes, a lot of people say, oh, guys don't have feelings. Hey, guys get angry a lot. So that's a feeling. Maybe it's not, showing their fear or showing their tears, but definitely their feelings are, available to them. And, some they may categorize as though that's more feminine, but that's nonsense. We all have these feelings, this spectrum within us, and we all have access to it if we allow ourselves to go there. Yeah.
Kevin from Body Awakeners is on, and he's like, big yes, and a lot of exclamation marks. I wanted to ask you, from you started this work to now, would you say that your range of emotion, like how is it developed from the beginning to where you are now?
Wow. I would say that the reason why I use the term heart warrior is that you actually have to be courageous to face the suppressed emotions inside the body that have been suppressed for so many years. It does take courage. And I had to really reach deep for some courage to say, oh, man, I'm feeling pain. I'm feeling some serious emotional pain. And I'm going to stay in that pain. I'm going to see it through. A lot
Right.
of people are not willing to do that, you know? And so the courage now that I feel from before is like amazing. I am so ready. I'm like, oh yeah, bring it on. Let's get busy. Let's bring on the whatever you got. It's like amazing that growth and courage to feel specifically, not to attack, not to fight, not to try to strategically get beyond the feelings, to go deep, to go in, to allow. And it's because of that why I can also deeply feel the orgasmic qualities of life, and specifically sexually as well. Because before, I believe I had like this PE, premature ejaculation thing, because um, it was too much, and the body was just trying to end it, finish it, and get rid of it, and move past it. And so to have faced that and faced the spectrum, if you face your fears, everything else will grow. All the spectrum, the light will grow, the light will shine. If you face your heart and its love and its willingness to love, everything else will grow. If you face your tears, everything else will grow. And so it's being able to really see that your willingness will help you expand all of your life and all of your light, and build the courage in the future outcomes of what you do with your life. And so that's what I've seen is a major difference.
Thank you. I would love us to do another live about that courage, and also about the staying in the shadow until it's integrated, or in the feeling that we have pushed away. Because that's the work for me. Whether we speak about sexuality or anything else, that's the way back to truth. So I would love to speak more about that with you at another time. Well, we are going to go live on Instagram for our followers there. Is there any last words that you would leave people with here on Facebook?
You are divine love, loved by divine beings. For the time being, maybe you can see what I'm seeing. You are alive and not defined by what your sign's reading. Let it retrograde and fade as we adjust the mind's meaning. Does it mean to me? It's an opportunity for you to express your life and love your life and live in unity. To express your life, love your life. Come and join me. Orgasmicart.com. Love y'all.
Thank you so much. Join us on Instagram, Tantra Connection, and thank you so much, Deva, and everybody who was here.